Salut mes pirates! Hello guys, this is the Captain Hook Chronicle for a new episode, and today is a great day because we have the chance to have as a guest for this episode a guy who run a great channel on YouTube about boxing, and the guy who is behind the one of the best, maybe the best boxing podcast of the YouTube boxing game. We have the chance today to be with Michael Montero. Hello, Mike.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mike. I really appreciate it. But Mike, I already have to apologize. Already. And I apologize to you guys. I apologize to you who click on the video for Michael Montero and you realize you have to deal with a weirdo like me. And yes, I apologize for my big, my strong, my fat French accent. I'm aware about it, you know. I will try to do my best and meet me halfway. It will be okay. Okay?
You're doing great, brother. You're doing great.
Thank you, Mike. But you know what? This is a topic more serious than you think you as Americans, you know, for all the boxing fans around the world, you know, the language, it's sometimes a problem, and I have a lot of people from my community who get tired to be put on the side by a bad translation, and they come to me for advice to be closer to how the boxing world behave, and my advice is always to start by listening the Neutral Corner, your podcast, because in my opinion is one, if not the best in the game. So thank you again for your work you put every Monday evening, the Neutral Corner. So it's every week, it's a great moment. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for saying that.
Thank you. And Mike, it's also not just the guy behind a great podcast that I receive also a journalist, a boxing writer that since a few years now, you work with Ring Magazine. You write for Ring Magazine, and you write about many topics. But what I enjoy the most in your piece of work, it's every time you do a portrait of a fighter. It's really great to read. It's really great to read. For example, the portrait of Jamel Herring. You did also the portrait a few years ago of Jojo Diaz, if I remember. Also,
yeah, that was Boxing Monthly magazine.
Yes, okay, and also Caleb Plant, many.
Yep.
But tell us, what portrait was you enjoyed the most doing it?
That's a good question. I've done so many, but you know, you just brought up Jamel Herring.
Yeah.
Jamel Herring was one of those guys that was a very easy interview. Yeah, just speaking with him, we ended up talking for several hours, and I was only supposed to talk to him for maybe 30 minutes, but we ended up talking for hours. I was in the Marine Corps in the military, and so was he. So we kind of bonded on that. And just started talking about different things. And he's a very open person, very open human being. There's some fighters you interview and they're a little more closed off, and they're difficult to ask tough personal questions with. You know, Caleb Plant, for example, he was a difficult interview. He's a nice guy, right? And you know, it was a good story, and it ended up being a good piece for me that was well received. But he was a tough interview. He was very difficult to kind of break down his barrier and to get him to open up a little bit. But Jamel Herring was one of those individuals that was just very open and accommodating. And anything, I could talk about anything with him. He's been through difficult things. I mean, his daughter died, his best friend died, and he was willing to talk about those things with me. So far, he's probably my favorite person, just to interview and get to know a little bit.
Yeah. For my part, I had the same feeling where the day I interviewed Johan Duopa, the heavyweight, who fight Wilder a few years ago, and also the guy completely open to me. You know, it was almost too much, almost, but it was a great moment. But tell us more about maybe your method. So when you have to do a portrait like an implant, like you explained, do you meet the guy? Do you go to the gym to watch him? Do you just call him on the phone? How you do it?
It depends on the situation. So with Joseph Diaz Jr., I actually went to the gym, and me and my fiance went, and she took pictures and video, and I met him, his father, the person who trained him as a little boy. He kind of ran the boxing club where they were, Ben Lira, and he's worked with a ton of kids, and went to their actual gym where he trains, and Jojo also helps out a lot of the young fighters, the young kids trying to train there as well. So that was a situation where I was on location, just hanging out, watching him train, watching him work out, seeing his interaction, not just with his father, his trainer, but with the kids, and seeing how everyone in the gym looked up to him and treated him. The kids really looked up to him. And then there's situations where, yeah, you're talking on the phone, and, you know, you can't, like when I spoke to Jamel Herring, you know, we were hundreds of miles apart and I couldn't go to meet him. So we just talked on the phone. So every situation's different. And sometimes I've even done interviews where I'll email people questions, and I'll email 10 questions and say, can you send this back to me? Because sometimes guys are in training camp.
Yeah.
And they can't talk to you on the phone that day. They're getting up at 6 in the morning to go run, coming back and getting a massage. They're resting. Then they're going and doing their boxing training. Then they're resting. Then they're doing sparring. So they're busy. So at night, right before they're going to go to bed, they can look at their email and they can respond through email. So basically, whatever way I can get them, that's the method I use.
Okay. You just bring Jojo Diaz as an example, and you know, the few years ago I had the chance, because I was on this fight in Auckland, the chance to see and to meet the team of Jojo Diaz, his father, his uncle too, and great people, and
wonderful people,
and. Maybe last January, I suppose you will really happy to see him put an amazing fight against Farmer and take the belt. It's for the moment, it's one of the best fights of the year. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was the perfect night for him, where he put everything together. He'd come up short in the past.
Yeah.
He had one opportunity where he missed weight. He had another opportunity where he just came up a little bit short against a fighter that was just a little bit better in Gary Russell Jr. But this was the right time, the right place, and he put it all together on one night. And if you've seen some of the struggles he's been through, I know he's had issues with depression and things like that. This was a special moment for him, his family, and really the whole community. South Del Monte, it's a tiny little town, maybe an hour east of Los Angeles. And that's where he came up. That's where he grew up. And that whole community there, that was like a victory for all of them. It was a very special night. They had tears the whole night. Him and his whole family, his father, everybody, because they had worked so hard.
Yeah, you can feel it on the screen
right.
on DAZN. So, Mike, we speak about your work with Ring Magazine. I wanted to talk with you later in the interview, but maybe it's time to talk about it now, because you were brought in a really difficult situation as a journalist last year. You covered the first fight of Usyk as a heavyweight in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you became a witness of something very difficult to take for everybody. But you become the witness of the tragedy about Patrick Day. Patrick Day, a great fighter to watch. and you wrote about this in a beautiful, seriously, a beautiful piece of work. My pirates, you have to read this. It's a beautiful homage for this young man. I suppose that episode will stay forever with you.
Yeah, it was. Thank you for reading the piece. It was that was one of the more difficult things I've had to do, writing that piece. And it's not that I was worried to express my experience and my opinions. I was worried that I was not going to honor him good enough, and I wasn't going to do a good enough job. I wanted to make sure I honored Patrick Day, his family, and everybody involved in that tragedy. And people have told me I did a good job, so that made me very happy. But that's the first time I've seen a ring death up close. I was, I think, might have been the first or second row, I can't remember, but of the press section. But I was in the corner right where he came out of the ring. I was in that corner of the press row, and seeing him go down the final time, the arena went silent. Everybody went silent. And he was carried out on a stretcher, and I saw his body twitching and still moving. And he's carried out literally right by me. I mean, I'm sitting here, and he came right next to me. So seeing him basically lose his consciousness right there next to me, and knowing that he was going to the hospital, and his promoter, Lou DiBella, I have a pretty good relationship with Lou. And I was texting him throughout the night and throughout the following days. And, we found out he had passed. It was just a very surreal experience. It's something that I'll never forget, because just a day or two before that, they had the press conference there in downtown Chicago for that whole fight card. And I wrote about this in my piece. So you know where I'm going to say. Most of these press conferences are very boring. It's the same thing, the same questions, the same responses. How's training? Oh, training's good. I'm in great shape. I can't wait to fight. That sort of thing. But then Patrick Day got in front of the mic, and he was so bright, just a very bright smile. He had such a beautiful aura about him that the entire room changed. Everybody was playing with their phone. Everybody had their phone and was doing this. And then when Patrick Day started talking, people put their phone down and just looked up, because he had that kind of personality. He could have been an actor. He could have been a television actor. He really could have been. Could have been a politician or something. Okay. He had that kind of charisma. And I had never met Patrick Day. I had never met him because I was in Los Angeles, and I did the Los Angeles fight beat, and he was out of New York. So this is my first time seeing him, and he just made this big impression on me. And my fiance was there with me doing photography, and she said the same thing, like, "Wow, he could be an actor or something. He's so good looking and such a good speaker." Yeah. And then 2 days later, he didn't die 2 days later, but he lost consciousness, and then he died several days after that. It was just to see all that happen right in front of me to such a young person. Yeah, it was. It's something that I will admit. The first few nights going to bed, trying to go to sleep, the image of him falling to the canvas stayed in my head. It played over in my head for a few nights. It's and then going by me on the stretcher. That was just. And look, I was in the military. I've seen things like that before, but not in this way. Boxing has always been fun for me, and covering events has always been, even if, it was a bad decision or a bad scorecard or some kind of controversy, it was still a positive, fun experience. And to go through this, it's just an experience I'll never forget. It changed the way I look at boxing. It really did.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, my pirate, if you want to honor Patrick Day, continue to watch his fight because he was a beautiful fighter to watch. I don't say that he could have been a champ, but
Right.
you know, the skill sets was great. Even for the young fighter, you have a lot to learn watching a Patrick Day fight. Seriously, guys. So don't hesitate to fetch his wife and honor him. So we will stop about this. Mike, and speaking about just the sport, your position in Ring Magazine give you the opportunity to cover many fights. You know, for example, we know as a listener of your podcast that you cover this fight, Spence against Garcia.
Oh, yeah.
That was really. Spence and Garcia are really the hype, even in France, for these two guys was very high, and it's one of the fight that all the boxing French fan was talking about, you know. And but what was your best night covering a fight?
Wow.
You have so many, I know, but
Yeah. It's tough because there's different categories. I mean, the biggest event that I covered was both Canelo Golovkin fights. Those were big events, and I could have covered Mayweather McGregor, but I didn't want to. But yeah, so Canelo Golovkin, those were big events. But there's been several events that I've been to that made an impression on me just because the magic that was there that night. I remember when Gennady Golovkin fought Marco Antonio Rubio.
Yes.
That wasn't a great opponent. But I think that was a mandatory. I think that's how he became the WBC mandatory. But that was at the time it was called StubHub Center. Now it's called Dignity Health Center or something like that. But it set a record for the biggest crowd that night. I think it was 9,000. It was capacity crowd. But the sun had gone down. It was dark outside.
Okay.
It was a cool night, and there was just a magic in the air because people were so excited to see Gennady Golovkin. He was just starting to break through and become a star, and the fans there in LA were so excited to see him that the crowd atmosphere was insane. And then at the same venue, Orlando Salido and Francisco Vargas. That was such a special night. And not only because the fight was so great, but that was the first major fight after the passing of Muhammad Ali. Oh. So again, there was just a magic feeling in the air. All the fans were thinking about Ali. There was a tribute to him that night. And then you get this amazing fight on top of that. It was such a special moment. And there's been several like that. So I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that night. Just being there, and that was one of the times where I took out my phone and just took video of the crowd. Like a fan. I just did a video of the crowd and I saved it on my computer. Wow. And I've done that with several fights where I just think, I want to keep this. And I don't really share it. I don't show it to anybody. I just keep it on my computer. And every now and then I'll look at those videos and just think, I was there for this. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I can imagine. But speaking about just the place, the arena, Spence and Garcia was the biggest arena you ever cover. Can you tell me more about that night? And we can also speak about Spence after that.
That was at AT&T Stadium, just outside Dallas, Texas. And the NFL's Dallas Cowboys play there. I think the capacity seating is just over 100,000, which for America, that's a really big stadium. I know in different parts of the world, they have football stadiums, or soccer, we call it soccer, but football in other parts of the world.
You put some picture on your Facebook page, and even the picture was huge and amazing,
Yeah, just being there, the whole venue, I've never seen anything like it. It's an amazing venue. It's the best venue I've been to. The screen on the field is huge. I believe it's the biggest screen on earth at a stadium, at an arena. So being there for that crowd, and I want to say for Spence Garcia, there was over 40,000, I believe. It might have been 50, but it was right there, 40, 50,000. Being on the floor right next to the ring, everyone's above you. So that noise reverberates from above you, and you almost feel like, you know, I had a bottle of water, and things would get so loud it would shake because
like in Jurassic
noise.
Park.
Yes, yeah, it's like being at a concert. You know, sometimes it's a pretty cool experience, and that's when I feel very fortunate to be able to do what I do.
Yeah, because I have also a young subscriber who are a really big fan of Errol Spence. I am too, but they sent me so many messages because they were really impacted by the entrance of Spence that night.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah,
the young people were really impacted by him.
And he got the crowd really, really going. When Errol Spence did his ring walk and his entrance, the crowd really got into it. And that was pretty special.
That was pretty
I think from that moment on, Spence hit a new level in his career. You know, he became a star. Now, is he a superstar? I don't know about that. I think he still needs to fight somebody like Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford. He needs someone like that to become a superstar, but he's a star now. Clearly, he's a star.
Yeah, but for all the US viewer who watching the video, his stardom crossed the border. You know, in Europe is really for the young fans is really it's a big name. It's really a big name. Even if you don't speak English, it's a big name. So speaking about him, so he has a crazy year last year. Two amazing fights, an accident, a miracle with his car accident. How do you see his comeback in boxing?
So I actually spoke with some of the people on his team recently, last month actually, and their plan. And I guess I can talk about it now. I mean, at first I had to keep it off the record, but I think I could talk about it now because several people know. But he's supposed to fight Danny Garcia next. I know that's what they want to do. Okay. And they wanted to fight Danny Garcia in June. And there was no tune-up fight. They're going to go right into that fight. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that delays everything. But I think they are still hoping to do that fight in September. Okay. So what they wanted to do was have Errol Spence fight Danny Garcia in June and then fight Manny Pacquiao at the end of the year. But now the Pacquiao fight is not going to probably happen until next year. So probably in September, Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, Fox pay-per-view is probably what's going to happen.
Okay. But do you think it will be the same after all that? It's complicated.
Oh yeah, it's very. We're not going to know until he gets in the ring.
Yeah.
So him and his team say that he's great, everything's fine. The only injuries were some teeth were knocked out, so he had to get some dental work. But they say there's no injuries. However, we've seen fighters and other athletes be in accidents before, and they were never the same.
Yeah.
So we just won't know. We won't know. The good thing is he is young. And, you know, had he been 35, 38 years old and got in the accident, maybe he doesn't react as well. But he's a young guy. He's in his physical prime. So I think that helped him respond and heal quicker, heal better.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. But according to him and his team, he's 100%.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I want to speak now about the worldwide, the real face of boxing. You know, I know in US you can talk about Canelo, but worldwide, the love for this guy is amazing. It's really rare to see so much love for this guy. And we will speak about him. It's Tyson Fury. And with Tyson Fury, we can debate about the state of the heavyweight division. So I'm still surprised, you know, because people forgot very quickly, but if you go back 4 years ago, 3 years ago, Tyson Fury, he was dead for us. You know, the guy was completely dead. Nobody believed in him anymore. And today, it's for, you know, and not just for the people in UK, you know, that the love for the guy cross the border. It's amazing to see. I can see it with my own community on YouTube. Are you surprised about that big change?
Yeah, I think we're all surprised. I think the biggest thing, and we could talk about, you know, the depression. He was out of the ring for 2.5 years. He gained so much weight. I mean, we could talk about all that, but putting that aside, just the boxing part, he promised that he was going to come forward and knock out Deontay Wilder.
And he did.
And he did. I can't think of the last time a fighter made a big, bold promise like that and delivered. His performance in that fight, in the way he handled himself in the promotion, during the fight, after the fight, I think it endeared him to fans all around the world. And you mentioned Canelo Alvarez. You know, I actually think Canelo Alvarez is a very popular fighter, particularly with Mexican-American fans.
We will speak
and
about
of course,
Canelo
in Mexico. But Tyson Fury might be a bigger star now.
Yes,
globally.
Yes, worldwide. Yes.
Yeah, he probably is.
Oh, yes. We talk about Tyson Fury all the time, you know, all the time. And he surpassed Canelo. And, but Tyson Fury is really clever because every time he wins 2 fights. The fight on the ring and the narrative of the fight. Every time, you know. Every time. That's the reason that he controls the fights. And he's always in advance. You know, Wilder didn't exist in terms of narrative of the fight for 2 fights. And it's crazy to think about that. And this is my theory. But about the landscape of the division, Tyson Fury, Joshua, Wilder, if we are honest, we have to say that it's not the heavyweight anymore. It's the big heavyweight. It's the super heavyweight. You know, how a regular heavyweight can still compete when you're just a regular heavyweight. When you are tall like me or like you, it's almost now impossible, completely impossible. And the deep question I have about Tyson Fury, it's yes, in term of skill set, the guy is on top. You know, he's so much better than everybody in the division in terms of skill set. But without his physique, do you think he can be the champ?
With his physique?
The physique, his range is so much tall, so much heavy. You know, if he was just a regular heavyweight, do you think he can win that easy against the big guys?
That's a good question. I think that a big part of what he uses to his advantage is his height and length. You know, he has very long arms, very, very long arms, and he uses that reach. He also uses his height defensively to lean back. He does a lot of shoulder rolling and leaning, and he gets you to reach, and then he punches back. He gets you to reach, punches back. He rolls with you, punches back. Right, so that's his style. And if he was a shorter guy, he couldn't fight like that. He'd have to fight different. So, you know, but that's what makes the heavyweight division different. You know, anything over 200 pounds, that's it. You're a heavyweight. So if you have a guy who's very tall and long, he's going to use that to his advantage. Shorter, stockier guys are going to have to get inside and get underneath that power. Can someone do that? I don't know. I mean, look, Steve Cunningham knocked Tyson Fury down. I think it was a fluke. You know, it was a freak punch. I get it. But he was a smaller guy. I think Steve is my size. Steve Cunningham is basically my size.
Mine too.
And he was able
We're the same.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm like 6'4", so like 220. But it's funny to think that we're small. We'd be a small heavyweight right now. But that's just the way the division is. But you think about it, it's not just heavyweight. There are other divisions. I'm trying to think of an example. Let's look at the middleweight division, where you have somebody, or even super middleweight, somebody like Callum Smith. Callum Smith is like 6'2", 6'3", has very long arms,
very
taller, longer than everybody in that division. So he uses that height and that reach to his advantage. And then there's other super middleweights that are stockier, like Canelo. Canelo's a guy who's a little stockier, shorter arms, and he has to use a different skill set. So your skill set goes hand in hand with your physique. If you're a tall, long guy, you're going to fight that way. You're going to use your height. That's the smart thing to do, and that's what Tyson Fury does. The difference in that Wilder rematch is instead of laying back, he came forward. He almost fought like a smaller guy, if you think about it, because he came forward and pressed the fight.
Yes, but Mike, every time that it was the strategy from Andy Lee for that fight. But you spoke about Steve Cunningham, and we can also talk about Otto Wallin when he is in big difficulties. He put his physique first, He put his physique on the opponent, and he suffocate his opponent. Steve Cunningham suffocate, Otto Wallin finished to suffocate, and when he has to switch to a plan B, the physique is the answer.
But that's smart.
Yeah,
that's smart. Yes. If you think about it, Lennox Lewis did that to a certain degree. Yeah. Vladimir Klitschko did that to a certain degree, where they would lean on you, they clinch. That's an advantage. If you have that advantage, use it. The way Tyson Fury fought in the rematch with Deontay Wilder, what was so impressive about it is, again, he had fought on the back foot before. Now he's fighting on the front foot. As you mentioned, against Otto Wallin, he showed a plan B where he could lean on you and fight on the inside. What impresses me the most about Tyson Fury is he has shown that he can win with different styles. He can win in different ways. He has those extra dimensions. And I think that's what makes him the best heavyweight in the world right now.
Yeah, because at least he's one of the rare heavyweights who can go to the ring with a plan B and with a plan A and a plan B.
Yes.
Not a lot of them can do that. So, last question about the heavyweight landscape. How do you see the future of the division?
My favorite heavyweight prospect right now is Daniel Dubois out of the UK.
Big hype in all the Europe, not just in UK, all the Europe, big hype about him.
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to really, I think in 2019, people really started to pay attention, a bigger audience. And he's supposed to fight Joe Joyce this year. I think that's a big fight. That's a really big fight. If he beats Joe Joyce, that's a statement. That's a big statement. He's still very young. I want to say he's 23, something like that.
Very young. Yeah.
He has a lot of time to develop. He had a very short amateur career. So I don't think they should not rush him. They should take it slow. But he has great, just the right physique, good athleticism, good power, nice balance. He can throw every punch. He's upstairs, downstairs, everything. What we don't know is does he have the chin? We don't know.
We'll see.
So we'll find out.
We'll see.
If he's got this, he's going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So Mike, one of my team for this interview, it's the language, and it's one of my theory about the boxing business. The boxing business is run in English, and this is the rule. We have to deal with that. If you take just for a second the UFC and think about GSP, I'm pretty sure GSP could not have been the legend that he is today if he didn't make the effort to communicate and to speak in English. And also, I'm pretty sure that the American audience always give props to champion like Pacquiao, to champion like Miguel Cotto, that make the effort to communicate in English with the audience, and people really appreciate it. But on the opposite side, I'm still amazed to see fighters who are still relevant in the boxing business as a name, and who don't make the effort to speak just one word of English. So please, Mike, explain to me this guy, Erislandi Lara, for example. The guy is called the American Dream.
Right. But he doesn't speak English. I can't explain it. I don't know what to say, you know.
And he's always the main event.
Yes. Yeah. Look, he's been very fortunate. He's carved out a good career for himself. He's made some good money. He's actually been more exciting in his recent fights. But yes, it is kind of funny to call yourself the American Dream and not speak English. Yeah. You know, if you or I move to China, we better learn Mandarin.
Yeah.
Right? We have to learn Mandarin if we want to get by in China, especially if we're trying to be an entertainer. Yeah. And that's what fighters are. They're entertainers.
Yeah.
Right? All athletes are entertainers. Yeah. So for some reason, some fighters want to learn and communicate in the country that they live in and appeal to a broader fan base. And some just don't care.
Yeah.
You look at Gennady Golovkin is another example. Gennady Golovkin, born in Kazakhstan, so of course grew up Kazakh and Russian is close enough. He speaks. His father's from Russia, so he speaks Russian. But when he started his career in Germany, and he started to learn German because he wanted to appeal to the German fan base, and it didn't work out for him there. So they moved to America. So he learned English, and they were trying to appeal to Mexican American fans, so he learned some Spanish words. Yeah. He really made an effort to appeal to a broad fan base. And then you have somebody like Canelo Alvarez. I mean, Erislandi Lara is a good example, but Canelo Alvarez to me isn't even, it's just mind-blowing to me because he's such a big star without being, he's not a crossover star at all. He's a big star with a built-in fan base, the Mexican-American fan base, which is the biggest fan base in the United States for boxing. That's the biggest demographic. Yeah. So he has that demographic. If you have the Mexican-American fans, you're going to make millions of dollars. You're going to be fine. Yeah. But if you want to appeal to a bigger fan base, speak English. Yeah. And he understands English. But there is...
You live in San Diego, if I...
Yes. Well, he trains there. Yeah. And so and San Diego's right on the border. It's perfect for him to come up there and train. But he understands English. I mean, like I've interviewed him several times, and I'll ask a question, and he'll answer right back, but he answers in Spanish. And I think part of that is because some Mexican fans, more so in Mexico, not Mexican American, but in Mexico, they don't like when their fighters speak English. They think it makes them soft. Not all Mexican fans. I should not all, but there's some. I think the more old-fashioned fans and old-fashioned Mexican media, they almost hold it against a Mexican fighter if they speak English. It's a strange dynamic that they have down there, and I think Canelo just doesn't want to lose his credibility with that old-fashioned Mexican media, so he just doesn't speak English, even though he could if he wanted to.
Yeah, and yes, it's for him, his fan base is enough, in fact. And for guys like me, you can feel put on distance because of that. Because also for all the people like who look like me when they speak English, you know, we really can relate to a champ who put the effort. You know, I remember I really relate to Miguel Cotto when he struggled to speak English because, you know, I could see myself struggle the same way, you know.
Right.
And so for all people, not just in US and UK, you know, it's something that appeal to us.
I agree, because most of us, no matter what part of the world we live in, most of us are whether you're an immigrant yourself or you're related to an immigrant. So my grandparents came to America. So I grew up around people that didn't speak the best English.
Yeah.
And I understand that struggle. And I understand the struggle of learning a new culture and the culture divide between one generation from another part of the world and the new generation in the new part of the world.
Yeah.
You know, there's that divide. And when you see a fighter just making the effort, even if they say words wrong or say phrases wrong, it almost makes it better.
Yeah.
Like when Golovkin would say, big drama show. He was trying to say, I'm going to make an exciting fight. I'm going to make an exciting fight for the fans. He didn't know how to say it. So he said, big drama show.
And we understood.
And people loved it.
And we understood, and we loved it.
He's trying.
Yeah.
And it's very endearing. And that became a hashtag. Now.
And you try,
Twitter,
after a boxing fight. You try on the microphone, on HBO, after a boxing fight. That's, you can appreciate the effort, You just receive big punch in the face, in the brain. So, yes. But not just about the language now, about the statue of Canelo, because also worldwide, the hate, I have to say the hate for Canelo become more and more huge months after months after months. I can see in my community, people now hate Canelo. They can't stand anymore his diva mentality.
Yeah.
They can't stand anymore the fact that is really the hate side and the opponent has to say yes to everything. People become crazy about that. And the backlash is really huge. I don't know if Golden Boy Promotion, for example, really understand and weight the worldwide backlash about this guy, because it's big.
That's what happens when you're the top guy. I mean, Canelo, regardless if you think he's the biggest star globally or not, and you can make an argument that Manny Pacquiao is still the biggest star globally in boxing of active fighters.
Joshua, Pacquiao, Fury. And
I think it's four or five guys. Yeah, and Canelo's certainly among them. But Canelo has the biggest contract. Canelo has signed the biggest contract and makes the most money per fight. So he's the top guy in that respect. When you're the top guy, you're going to get haters. I mean, before him, it was Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather had a lot of haters. Before Floyd, it was Oscar De La Hoya. He had a lot of haters. Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, and we keep going back. The top guy will always have haters.
Yeah, but really from the outside, I have the feeling that it's really a new step of backlash. It's really a new step about him. And look at the picture, Mike. It's DAZN on Canelo trunk with what we live. The nightmare we live with the virus. Do you think DAZN will stay relevant afterward, and even will survive with that?
Yeah, it's tough because right now they're a subscription service, and right now they have no material. ESPN Plus is an app. It's a subscription service as well. The big difference is ESPN Plus. There you go.
I'm dumb enough to still pay for my subscription.
Oh, you're still paying?
Yeah.
Well, you're one of the very few.
Yeah.
A lot of people have canceled it for right now because they don't have what we call shoulder programming. That's additional programming to just boxing. ESPN Plus, if you have that app, they have a lot of documentaries. They have other sports, and it's also cheaper. So they're doing fine. But the zone is strictly, in the United States, it's strictly boxing. And they have fights you can watch.
Yeah.
But since it's only about a year old, their library of fights isn't that big. And they don't have any shows, any documentaries, anything like that. And I've been arguing for basically a year now that they need to pick up some podcasts. It would be smart for DAZN to pick up, there you go, a French language podcast, an English language, a Spanish language podcast. They should, though. They should pick up 4 or 5 different boxing podcasts. Imagine if your podcast was on DAZN and that was the only place where people could hear it. Now, if there's podcasts, nobody's going to subscribe to DAZN just for a podcast. But if you were already subscribed and the fight schedule was weak for that month or whatever, at least there's some programming to keep you busy.
Exactly.
There's something to enjoy.
Because
right now they have nothing.
Yes. Because who subscribed to DAZN? The hardcore boxing fans.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And it's not casual fans.
Exactly. And I can stand a casual broadcast. You know, I can stand it.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm really worried about DAZN right now, you know. But we'll see because you know the broadcast of the fight nights were good, you know.
They've got some wonderful cards.
Wonderful,
wonderful
even
events.
the last one, Mickey Garcia and Jesse Vargas, was a great night to watch. You know,
that was a great fight card. That was the best card of the year so far. That was a very good card, and they really have a great opportunity to do something amazing, but they have to smarten up and they have to service their subscribers better. And even without a global pandemic, even before the COVID-19 crisis, the boxing schedule does not stay like this. It goes up and down. There are months where you have great fights, and then there's a month where there's no fights. So you have to have shoulder programming. You have to have additional programming during that time to keep your subscribers happy. And it has to be for hardcore fans, not casual fans.
And not just classic fight that you can watch on YouTube.
Right. You could go find these fights on YouTube. But if they picked up some podcasts and some shows and they interviewed real diehard boxing people, not casuals who tune in just for a big pay-per-view fight, but people that watch every fight and do shows every week like we do. We are the dedicated boxing community that keeps boxing going. We are the heartbeat of boxing. That's the truth.
We live, we breathe about boxing.
Exactly. We are the heartbeat.
The only thing that is more important for me than boxing is my kids. I tell you that, you know. Even my wife knows it about it, you know. So it's that stage of passion we have about boxing, and I think they have to finally understand it, you know.
Yeah, they need to understand the mentality and the passion that people like us have. We are who matters. I think the promoters in the networks focus too much on the casual fan, and I understand
it's a bad bet.
There might be 1 or 2 events a year that the casual fan buys. So the rematch between Wilder and Tyson Fury, okay, that is where casual fans watch. But you talked about the Jesse Vargas card, Jesse Vargas, Mikey Garcia. That wasn't for casuals. No. That was for diehards. That's who's watching all those events throughout the year. And the smart promoters understand that and do a better job of communicating to those fans because that's who pays their salary.
Okay. Mike, so we have a great show together. I have so much to ask, but it will be a long work to do the subtitle. Mike, so I want to speak with you about something really specific to France, to change, you know. I reversed everything now, and I want to speak about a case and a prospect. I will show you. Tell me if you know him.
Is that Tony Oka?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Tony Oka. So Tony Oka, the Olympic champ, the best prospect we have in the country. And he crystallized completely the debate in France, you know, because he broke the audience, all the casual, and you also all the boxing fans, that have to mix together about Tony Yoka, and he's stuck in a really weird situation. Nobody talk about in US, but after having fight in France, and he has a deal with a television in France called Canal Plus, and I think it's the deal is really strict, really strict, and fighting in France, okay, it's good for his people, but that doesn't make you a name worldwide. So he has to cross the ocean and fight in US. He has to, because it's like this, if for the heavyweight division, that is the most, if I can say, the most English spoken division, if you agree with me. So yes. Bob Arum he did the travel to Paris to deal with Yoka, and he had a fight in US. Normally March 14 at the Madison Square Garden in the undercard of Stevenson, but the narrative was nobody find him an opponent, even a journeyman. Yes, but also Top Rank never say officially that they sign Tony Yoka. They never say, because when they sign a fighter on the social media, they announce the signing. For example, when they sign Josh Taylor, on every social media they announce the signature. They never did for Yoka. So I think this prospect, Olympic champ, is completely stuck between two contracts, and his career is completely it's on hold, and is running so far behind with the rest of the prospect of the division. Did you know about that and about Tony Yoka?
Yeah, I was going to look up to see how old he is. I wanted to see.
I think he's still maybe 27, 28.
27, 20. Okay, yeah. I thought it was 27. I was going to say that's a big difference between him and, let's say, somebody like Daniel Dubois, who is very young. Tony Yoka's got to get going here. But I can't remember the exact situation, but I know there were issues with his contract, and was he suspended at any point or something like that in France?
He was suspended for 1 year because he didn't show up for.
Was it a drug test?
For drug test, yes.
Okay, yeah, I remember. I couldn't remember the details, but I remember something like that where he had the suspension. Yeah. There was some sort of issue, and then I know that there was complications with the contract and all that. So he's in an unfortunate place because he's got just a lot of noise around him.
Yeah,
and I think that if there was a way to streamline all that and consolidate all that noise and get with one promoter, one manager, and fight in one place, I think that would be best for him. I think it's great that he has the French fans behind him, and he's probably the most famous fighter in France right now, right? I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah. But he's with a network that I suppose doesn't really understand the business worldwide, and so they put him in contradiction with what Top Rank want to do with him. So
in Top Rank, when they sign a fighter, they want to have control. Yeah, they don't want to do it half and half. I mean, that's the reason they don't put their fighters in tournaments. They don't do that sort of thing. They want to control the fighter's career, and they always have a plan with what they're going to do. With Tyson Fury, they had a plan. With Jamel Herring, who we talked about, they had a plan. They always have a plan with these guys. And if Bob Arum went over there to talk to Tony Yoka and his people, that means he sees something in him that he likes, and he has an idea for how to market him. And they've been doing this for so long. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. They're the best
if I were Tony Yoka, if I were his friend, if I were his family member and I was trying to advise him, I would tell him, drop everything you're doing and sign with Top Rank. Look at what they just did for Tyson Fury. You said it yourself. 4 years ago, Tyson Fury was dead to the world.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who the hell he was. And Top Rank signed him, and look what happened. So I think that with Tony Yoka, if he could do something like that and come over to America, or even maybe do a couple of fights in the UK or something like that, it'd do wonders for him. I think he could do a fight in Canada, in Montreal. That'd be huge.
Yes.
There's a lot of potential there.
Thank you, Mike, because I speak big time about that, you know. The France community in Montreal can feel the Bell Center just because of Tony Yoka. I'm sure about that. So I hope they are aware and they finally did it. I hope for him. So Tony, if you listen to us, okay. Mike, it was so great to having you, but because I'm a subscriber of Montero Unboxing, you know. I really enjoy every time you write for Ring Magazine. I really enjoy reading your article. But I think about your career. I think about your future, Mike. And maybe one of the next challenge for you is maybe writing a book. Are you agree with that? In my opinion, you have to write a book, a boxing book, obviously. And I have for you a beautiful, dramatic boxing story that deserve a boxing book. So tell me if it's something that interests you, that that appeal to you. And knowing that you're based in Atlanta, Georgia, maybe the first book the boxing world need, it's a biography about this guy, Vernon Forrest.
Yeah, Vernon Forrest.
Vernon Forrest.
He deserves a book, huh?
He deserves
I don't think he's had one yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For his career, for his boxing skills, but also for all he did for the handicapped people. He deserves a movie and he deserves a book. Are you agree with me?
Yes, sir. That's a great point. And I know people here in town that know him that I could probably speak with. So that might be a project that I might have to put on the list, my friend.
Okay.
Might have to look into that.
So, okay. Keep your list because I have another idea for you. Knowing that you're based in Atlanta, another guy, but maybe the most enigmatic portrait of the fighter you can do, the most mysterious fighter you can talk about is this guy. And this guy was really well known in France. I show you why.
Oh, I know why.
O'Neal Bell.
Yeah, I thought you were going to bring him up. O'Neal Bell, yeah. Because he fought Jean-Marc
Mormec.
Yeah. So that makes sense that people in France know him.
And we heard so many crazy about O'Neal Bell, you know. He was
a lot of interesting...
The end is dramatic.
Yes.
Like Vernon Forrest. The end is really, really dramatic. But the guy was enigmatic. He was a mystery. Yes, and maybe a book can help us to know more about this guy from Atlanta. Yes, and I have a last suggestion for you. Let me say bye-bye to O'Neal. Last suggestion for you is this one. Is Chris Bird. Chris Bird, because you just did a video on your channel. My people, go watch the video, the top 20 heavyweight.
Top 20 heavyweights of the last 30 years. A few of my subscribers asked for that. And Chris Bird obviously was on the list. I think a lot of people underrate Chris Bird. Yes. I think he was a very good fighter who was underappreciated.
Yes.
And a classy guy. Just a really good guy.
And the the challenge he put was crazy. He was a middleweight,
Right.
Olympic medalist. He went to the heavyweight, so with no punch at all, just with his skills, he survived, and he survived with guys Holyfield to really crazy. But if you go further in his history on the ring, look at the picture, look at his corner. The corner of Chris Bird was his father and his mother. His mother was the second assistant. That's maybe something unique in the history of boxing, you know. A father, we know, but a mother...
it's happened a few times, but it is rare. Yeah,
it's really rare. And also that's crazy that... Do you remember his fight against Povetkin in Russia?
A little bit, but by then he was so old, yeah.
But the guy from his corner who dropped the... I don't remember the name of it in English, but who stopped the fight was his son.
Threw the towel, yeah.
Threw the towel was his son. That's
right, yeah.
Yeah, it's really a family story around Chris Bird that I think a boxing writer has to write about. You know,
it's a great idea. Yeah. Great idea. Great suggestions.
Thank you, my friend.
Suggestion.
Thank you, my friend. So, Mike, it was a pleasure and really a privilege to have us in my show, Les Chroniques du Capitaine Crochet. Mike, we can find you, and I will put the link just below. Montero Unboxing on YouTube, on different platforms, and also your show every Monday, the Neutral Corner, and also every Thursday. You have 2 shows every week.
Well, lately I've just been doing it Monday. I might go back to 2 a week, but yeah, I've just been doing it Mondays lately. But yeah, we're shooting tomorrow, so join the chat.
So, okay. Mike, it was a pleasure once again. And for all the people, we'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Boom!
Have a great